I'm writing this journal so that, should some horrific twist of fate come calling, there is something to represent me and tell my story. My money is on a drunken fistfight with the Yaogwai. Perhaps my story does not deserve to be told, so I'll let this journal serve another purpose, be my companion in the event that something noteworthy occurs. If I knew anything about storytelling, which I don't, I might find it good practice to provide a setting. That setting is this: a tortured slice of America formerly known as Boston, a couple years removed from a cataclysmic wave of nuclear fire. But to call it a wasteland would be unfair to the dense overgrowth of snow, ash, and other glowing etc. who have sprawled themselves across whatever surface would have them. To call it a wasteland would be unfair to the countless creatures and beasts that roam unchallenged through the abandoned streets. To call it a wasteland would be unfair to me, who prefers to call it home. Not that it ever brought me some unique sense of comfort or completeness, but it's the only place I've ever known. I'm sorry this place is such a mess. There was a bit of a war here. The kind of war that diverts the course of human history the same way an iceberg might reroute a ship by shredding its hull and sending it to the unthinkable depths of the sea. As far as I'm concerned, it's not up to me to save this world. My only job is to endure, to persist, but I can't help feeling that I want more. I want a purpose. Survival is an exceedingly powerful engine, for which I have no fuel. For now, I will wander as some wisp of undifferentiated nothingness until such a time that a purpose presents itself. This is my story as I see fit to share it. May whoever finds this, if it proves worth finding, come across it on the shelves of history in a time much better than now, and not as some tattered scrap mingling with the ashes of a world that could have been. Welcome to Fallout 4 Frost. I guess I'll start here. I have been walking for a few days. It's hard to say how far I've gone, but it'll have to be enough for now. I happened upon an overturned train car, and by the looks of it, it's seen better days. I figured that makes us a sort of kindred duo, this train car and I. If nothing else, we could both use a fresh coat of paint. It's time to rest. In the morning, I'll gather my strength and move along. The benefit of wandering a forgotten land is that the concept of private property has all but evaporated, as no nation or law is there to enforce it. You're free to drop your shit pretty much wherever and call it your land. But that also means it's difficult to stay anywhere for long. Sometimes a long-neglected structural integrity, threatening to buckle in on itself at any moment, drives you out of an abandoned storefront after a night or two. Other times, you might notice a roving band of murderous cannibals have set up camp nearby, so you decide it's probably the right moment to put on your least tasty clothing and fuck right on out of there. I awoke in the belly of that overturned trailer surrounded by a few scattered supplies. Nothing much, just some clothes, a gas mask, and some explosives for a rainy day. Of course, every day is a rainy day. It was time to venture into the world, but not without my teddy bear, mind you. When every moment feels like its own apocalypse, it's nice to have a hand to hold, even if that hand is just some lifeless, fuzzy toy. Outside, the world quietly rested under a blanket of gray. I took a few steps through a ruined forest before encountering signs of life, a lone survivor tending to her humble land. Taking chances is a fool's errand. The only way to ensure I stay upright is to get my hands a little dirty. I'm not proud of what I did, but sneaking closer to the survivor, I uncorked an atomic ass-kicking for the ages. As their lights went out, I heard them mumble something about having items for sale. This might have been the only friendly face for miles, but what's done is done. I liberated their supplies, including a hunting rifle and some ammunition, a fruitful outing. Inside their house, an unsent letter sat on the dining room table, telling the story of a survivor who can finally enjoy a painless retirement in the woods, unwilling to walk away from it even as they're asked to return to wherever they came from. Too late now. Pushing further into the woods, I remained aimless, hoping that something would draw me in, give me some reason to exist. The scorched trees gave way to the outskirts of Boston. As I approached an old hardware store, a woman called into the streets begging for help. Getting closer, she ran inside, inviting me to follow. Sensing a trap, I took a detour to the side of the building. I found access to the basement, where I stood my best chance of surviving the scene. If these are indeed some slimy con artists with a taste for blood, all I can hope is that they've been good enough to gather some choice gear and make this all worthwhile. Inside, I took advantage of the dirty pool of water by filling up some bottles I found. Survival in this harsh world is making something out of every opportunity. Where others may see a useless puddle of wet radiation, I see a chance to not die of dehydration. Pushing further, I overhear the scavenger con men above.
What's taking so long? I know I just saw someone out there.
This one looked like a good mark, so just shut up and wait!
At least that proves my instincts are completely shot. But it also means these people are not hosting a surprise party. I'll have to be careful. A single stray bullet, a well-placed strike from a baseball bat, anything would end my journey before it could even take shape. A pile of discarded victims lay at the bottom of a haphazard ramp leading to the main floor. Not being one of these people to fall prey to these ding-dongs is a great way to start, but the hard part is still ahead. I need to somehow take out a room full of violent assholes with the little bit of ammunition that I have. Ammunition that I pilfered from an unsuspecting survivor who probably wouldn't have done the same to me. I guess now it's better to pay the sins of my past by killing a bunch of Raider scum. Or maybe none of it matters. Is there some cosmic justice watching every move in the bitter wasteland? Doubtful. Just chaos. On the upper floor, I stocked the rows of shelves making up the hardware town, slowly combing each one for the raiders who set up shop here. I spotted the first one and opened fire, then the second, and the third, the fourth. Before anyone knew what was happening, their entire existence was upended by a dude who keeps a teddy bear in his pocket and has almost zero idea what he's doing. Sifting through their corpses, I came away with some more ammo and a nice hat. I also nabbed some medical supplies from a first aid kit. Another fruitful outing. You are what you do, so I should be more careful what I do. This world has enough cold-blooded forces of death. I want to aim higher and be something more. I thought briefly about pressing further into Boston, but the heavy presence of hostile forces made my decision. I can barely handle a couple of raiders barely scraping to get by, let alone an organized battalion of beefed-up baddies. Instead, I headed west to a lakeside suburb, giving a wide berth to the various wolves, ghouls, and yaoguai taking residence there. I don't have to be the fastest, the strongest, or the smartest to avoid a gruesome death. I just need to not be the slowest. I had nowhere to go, no one waiting on me anywhere in this nightmarish hellscape. But still, some unspoken force was calling me north. I suppose I'll know when I see it. I have been blessed with an iron will to live, and cursed with nothing to spend it on. Wandering through the forest for some time, I see a small structure adorned with the warm glow of a fire. There, a couple of friendly settlers struggle to carve out a life among the ruin. But god damn it, they're doing it without selling their souls. Overland Station is what they call it. These folks didn't offer much in the way of trade, but they didn't need to. Just knowing there is anyone, even remotely civilized, left is more potent than any 7.62 round or stim pack they could ever offer. This was a moral victory for humanity, no matter how small, and a lesson for myself. Continuing north, I crossed the river using a railway bridge, taking in the sights of the ruined world, the wonders of technology and ingenuity that built this incredible city, and every other one like it, were born of the same ilk that destroyed them. A duo of survivors challenged me at the top of the nearby hill. I allowed them to settle things peacefully, but they left me no choice. It doesn't have to be this way. For whatever reason, these survivors set up camp right next to Grey Garden, a hydroponic farm run entirely by robots. They seemed friendly enough, or at least they didn't rip me to burning shreds with their buzzsaws and flamethrowers. Not yet, anyway. The gray skies relented, becoming an otherworldly orange glow. As far as the eye could see, the charred husk of a once thriving forest was a blackened silhouette against this orange-colored sky. Despite the introduction of color, it remained ominous and a constant reminder that we may be beyond saving. Flash, bam, alakazam, I once again did something I regret in hindsight. A survivor sat on their knees overlooking the fresh grave of their fallen comrade. They took a moment of silence in a sacred space amid the endless cruelty of their life, like a hole in reality that only they inhabit. That is, until I barged in, whipping my fists until they were done. I placed their body in the grave alongside their friend. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was mercy that anyone capable of love shouldn't be condemned to this awful place. Maybe it was unbridled bloodlust that anyone capable of senseless violence should be the only one allowed to populate this frostbitten circle of hell. For better or worse, what I've done so far has been enough to upgrade my skills, and I can now harvest meat from animals, which will be crucial to my survival, once again, for better or worse. The more I can extract and tear from the jaws of this world, the better chance I stand. As the sun began to set, ushering in the night, I stayed close to the road as it rolled towards Concord. Another survivor and their dog guarded the street and threatened as I got near. I treated this like I've treated almost everyone so far. Bullets, violence. I sunk round after round into their flesh until they fell. I spared the dog because I'm not a complete monster. I found a backpack and some Federation attire on their body. I have no idea who these Federation people are. I suppose some faction rising out of the old world's ashes. There's no telling what they want or what they stand for. Entering Concord, the town was crawling with hostile survivors. A lesson that will always bear weight is knowing when to pick your battles. But even then, the spoils of war can't be realized without a bit of bloodshed. I couldn't possibly take a group like them directly, so I had to change my tactics. Getting their attention, I ran into the church, laying explosives in my wake before storming up the stairs. I watched the fires of the mines torch the survivors as I took shots at them from the high ground. I rained more explosives down on them and waited for the screaming to stop. I got to work rummaging through a street full of bodies, and noticed each fallen survivor donned a different style of gas mask. A clown, an elephant, a jaguar, which I decided to wear. I wish there was some symbolic meaning behind it, but it offered the most protection against the harsh conditions above ground, where the low hum of radioactive poison is ever present and lethal. The backpack I nabbed allows me to carry more things, but not much. I have no choice but to be mindful of everything I take. With few exceptions, if it doesn't directly serve me in the moment, I need to leave it behind. I stumbled across a speakeasy in the heart of Concord. I had no reason to go in except for some vague dream that perhaps a secret knock would whisk me away to some other better place. That dream was short-lived because inside was only crumbling skeletons and faded memories. Mannequins surround a body in a bathtub, wielding machetes and other sharp objects. A bedroom displays a destroyed bed shared by a skeleton and his mannequin mate. Giving them their privacy, I walked the decayed halls, taking in the sights of days gone by. The warmth and laughter of gatherings that once filled this place have long been stripped away by atomic fire and the years of neglect that followed. The rubble of Concord didn't provide much else of interest. I'm sure the winds will bring me back here as my travels continue, but my march resumes northward for the moment. Another lone survivor was posted on the north end of town and stood between me and the Red Rocket gas station. They knew someone was skulking around, but they couldn't be sure where. I opened fire, filling their weak, mortal shell with lead. On their body was a note from their journal. I guess I'm not the only one taking notes. They wrote about their settlement and its tragic end. By their accounts, mutants overran the entrance, forcing them to hide inside and board the doors. Their friends didn't make it and could be seen getting munched on by the mutants. Their only ally in the wasteland, Lexington, had already been taken by slavers. They had no supplies to spare and no one to call for help. Facing no other option, this survivor struck out on their own. It's not like it could be any worse, at least until someone like me comes along and shoots long before the thought of asking questions even comes up. Their settlement died in vain. Because of me, nothing good could ever come of their struggle. The Red Rocket gas station was infested with feral ghouls that I had no intention of disturbing. I took a shortcut through the woods and across the river towards a seemingly quiet neighborhood, Sanctuary Hills. With a name like that, it's hard not to imagine the best things. But still unsure how safe this place would be, I stuck to the perimeter before spotting a cellar door leading to an underground shelter. It was well stocked and cozy, a true respite from the horrors above and somehow untouched by radiation's corrupted hand. Inside was a fully functional terminal, and its user penned a series of entries on it. Whoever built this bunker successfully protected themselves from the Great War and beyond. They survived the bombs and had enough food, water, and medicine to keep them chugging long past the immediate devastation of the world becoming fire. Eventually, a survivor named Eric made their way into Sanctuary Hills. They agreed to work together. Eric would help defend the neighborhood, and in exchange, would have a place to stay. Before long, they bonded and grew closer, forming a friendship and dreaming wistfully that they could build a safe haven, like a light among the darkness. The mysterious goings-on of Eric's personal life did little to faze the survivor. One day, the two were scavenging and came across a stranger. They decided to let him live, but the moment he had the chance, he turned on them, nearly killing the survivor. Trust is as scarce a resource as food, water, or bullets, and just as easily wasted. Eric reassures the survivor that he will never betray him like that stranger did. Not long after, Eric was nowhere to be found, and some supplies were missing. A man came later attempting to kill the survivor, but failed. With nothing else to go on but overwhelming feelings of betrayal, the survivor steels himself, promising that no one will take Sanctuary from him, not even Eric. The hand that shakes an agreement can be the same one planting a knife in the back. Atop the house the bunker was connected to was a large, heavily armored man. I lobbed a nuke grenade his way and ended his reign. I have no way of knowing for sure, but he may have been the man responsible for those terminal entries. With him gone, I could freely explore Sanctuary. There were a few odd ghouls here and there, but otherwise this place was ripe for the taking. One thing has become clear: this is no way to live. I think I found a purpose, a reason to exist. The Commonwealth is suffocating under a black cloud of violent, barbaric evil. The social contract has been dissolved, and everyone is left to fight to the death over the crumbs of a world that destroyed itself. There is so much more good that can be done, if only someone can start the process of healing and building. Everyone here is trying to grab a piece of an ever-shrinking pie, but no one is working to grow that pie and ensure there is more to grab. So that's my purpose: grow the pie, and make this bitter place a paradise. And it starts with Sanctuary, the foundation of a new empire, of a new me. And I already have a loyal servant by my side, a Vault-Tec representative who's been cast aside by the Great War and left to wither away. He's going insane, but I'll never turn down a helpful pair of hands. For now I rest till the morning, but when I wake, the real journey begins. Like reverse alchemy, the Great War succeeded in destroying everything that was once golden, bright, and hopeful, rendering it into useless ash in one horrible instant. Humanity brought itself to its knees, stripped of its most cherished possessions, and left to writhe, broken and battered in its own filth. This nightmare did not materialize out of nothing. It needed a war, a perfect storm culminating in the brilliant end to the old world. Nations fought over an ever-shrinking supply of resources, no different than how we survivors fight. But where we have just crumbs of the old world to inflict harm on each other, they had incredible technology that no generation prior could have ever thought possible. Armored carriages powered by atomic energy, massive automatons wielding devastating armaments without the need for eating, sleeping, or mercy. Winged metal monstrosities filling the skies, as deadly as they were majestic, capable of throwing unthinkable horrors down to the earth from their bellies. And yes, perhaps most influential to this world becoming what it is, nuclear weapons cooked up to ruin a human being, their home, and everything they've ever known, quickly and painfully. They say the meek shall inherit the earth. Some inheritance this is. When the world became fire, we were swallowed by the ash that followed. We are like lost souls wandering purgatory, waiting for a merciful end. In the meantime, we can work to make the world hurt just a little bit less. Good luck, we're on our own. Welcome to Fallout 4 Frost. This apocalypse is still young, barely old enough to walk, talk, and learn. There's no sense in wasting its formative years. But the journey of 1,000 steps has no choice but to start with the first step. If I'm to coerce this lifeless ash into becoming some brilliant phoenix, I have a lot of work to do, especially on myself. How can I possibly hope to be the necromancer this rotting world needs? I can barely take care of myself. Sanctuary Hills has proved itself relatively safe. After clearing some ghouls from the abandoned houses, I could start fortifying my new haven among the rubble. I picked the house above the root cellar I found earlier. If this was good enough for the last remaining survivor of Sanctuary, it's good enough for me. I'll do my best not to follow in his mistakes. He had everything he needed to wait out Armageddon: food, water, shelter, and an unwavering will to live. It was only when another survivor wanted in on his little paradise that everything fell apart. He trusted a stranger who would later betray him. He vowed never to let that stranger take away what he had built. Rather than continue building, growing, and laying the seeds of a better life, the survivor grabbed his rifle and sat atop the roof of his home, watching the horizon for the stranger to return. Not only was that a terrible defensive position, but it was no way to live. None of this is. Playing not to lose is no way to win. That's what that survivor taught me. He didn't deserve Sanctuary, and there's a good chance that I don't either. I made some renovations to that ruined home above the root cellar. I reinforced the walls and blocked the windows. No light nor darkness shall enter or leave, less exposed to bullets that way. It's wishful thinking, but I brought a few extra dining room chairs to my new home. It's dinner for one for the foreseeable future, but you dress for the world you want, not the world you have. Although I do have the Vault-Tec rep by my side, but I'm not convinced he has any concept of reality. Ignorance is bliss, and this man is living in pure ecstasy. This house may seem like some rusty shack unfit for human life, but it's the best I can do for now. It has an actual bed, a place to munch down on some old cram, a well for pulling water from the ground, and and a spattering of lanterns to keep the monsters out at night. I converted the carport into a scavenging station, a place to consolidate all the junk and scrap and garbage from the outside and make it into something worth a damn. Eventually, I would like to add some workbenches and crafting stations to this makeshift garage, all the more ways to turn ash back into gold. There's a lot of work to do until then, but there's nothing wrong with laying the groundwork in the here and now. My only defenses at the moment are a wooden door and hope. I'll have to look for ways to keep the bad guys at bay. Landmines, trapdoors, an army of robots. Yeah, anything is better than the vault tech rep. I'm starting small, humble. It's just one house among a dozen more in Sanctuary, within a commonwealth hundreds of times the size, itself just a single region in an entire world laying in desperate ruin. Like a feeble lantern fighting back against a thick, suffocating fog, I will work to expand my influence slowly but surely, pulling in more and more from the outside and forcing it to work towards the end of making this world worth living in. That means I have to venture back into the wild. I need to explore, scavenge, and learn about this area. Know thy enemy, as they say. I'll head eastward, giving the downtown urban areas a wide berth for the time being. Sanctuary has this unique trait of being surrounded by water, like a kingdom protected by a noble moat. It's only knee-deep, but it's better than nothing. On the other side of the moat was a lone survivor's camp. He didn't have much, just some empty bottles and a bad attitude. The harsh reality of this world forces me to embody the worst, most disgusting traits human beings are capable of. To survive, I must take from others, often against their will. It's a zero-sum game, where only one can leave any encounter alive. The winner takes all, except for chances. But I'm no superhuman, leaping and bounding across the wasteland without fear, shrugging off bullets and blunt force trauma with reckless abandon. I'm weak, I'm tired, I'm afraid. I stay low and stick to shadows, out of view and out of danger, revealing myself only when I have the upper hand, even if only for a moment. Exploring above ground feels like threading a needle through a minefield. One wrong turn can result in instant death, whether it be feral ghouls, hostile survivors, or any of the countless horrific beasts haunting the scorched planet. I don't have the luxury of seeing a vague silhouette of a human in the distance and imagining anything other than an existential threat. If they come in peace, getting close enough to find out would be too late if it turns out they don't. Placing a bullet in their skull is the only safe bet, and it rewards me with all their supplies and resources that they spent countless hours gathering. I realize I'm no better than the raiders I claim not to be, but we're all forced to play the same game. The only difference is, I suppose, that I don't particularly enjoy it, but the result is all the same. Another dead survivor, another addition to my stash, another reason to wish for a better world. Marching further to the east, I came across a robotic salvage yard. A menacing sentry bot lay dormant in the scrap heap. There are enough angry beasts. No need to wake this one up for now. Maybe later I can find a way to make it fight for me as my loyal companion. But until then, it's better off sleeping. Just beyond the scrapyard was a downed vertibird, a remnant of the old world, used to carry men and women wherever their nation told them its enemies were so they could destroy them. Its occupants were sprinkled around, likely having died on impact, mercifully giving them no time to consider if it was all worth it. Their bodies are now guarded by a battalion of radstags, who are seemingly willing to defend the wreckage to the death. I was more than happy to steer clear as I had bigger fish to fry. The hulking satellite structure nearby, a group of raiders and feral ghouls were locked into bitter combat over control of the base. I stood aside as they traded blows. When one side emerged victorious, that would be my cue to clean up the mess. With limited ammunition, I had to make each shot count. As I slowly stepped through the mangled fence of the facility, a raider wielding a massive rocket launcher spotted me. Only through sheer luck did I avoid some gruesome missile death. I dropped him with a sure shot from my 10mm pistol. A squadron of angry mole rats stormed in, one of them with explosives strapped to its back. Another shot landing true forced the premature boom. Before things got too hairy out here, I slipped inside the satellite station, where several more raiders were holed up. They hadn't noticed me yet, allowing me time to hack the terminal and open up the intel storeroom. It seems I'm always one mistake away from exhausting my inventory. Supplies and resources are brutally scarce, forcing me to turn over every stone to keep myself going. Staying above water often means pushing someone else down. Competition is the way of the world. Today's contest pits me against a group of raiders in a decrepit military installation. Despite being locked behind a terminal, the intel room was devoid of anything immediately useful. I need ammunition, lest I resort to beating my foes to death with bare fists. There is a handful of valuable items, like a mini nuke or crafting components, but those won't help me get through the gauntlet of raiders waiting beyond the door. Aside from the improvised explosive device I found, I'm stuck with what I have, hoping I live long enough to make something out of the items in the room. I set up a trap in a nearby hallway, attempting to use the narrow passages to my advantage. Tossing down the explosive, I retreated and shot at the nearest baddie. As their comrades rushed to their aid, they tripped mine, filling the corridor with fire. Deeper in the facility, the rest of the group stood waiting. I lined up my aim and quickly dispatched them before they could discover what happened to their friends. Guerrilla warfare is the flavor of the apocalypse. It's the only way to level the playing field against impossible odds. I am outmanned, outgunned, out everything, but the element of surprise will serve me well. With the building now clear, I could work on looting its hidden treasures. For better or worse, I can see the appeal of raiding. Everyone else is busy gathering, sorting, and grinding out a place in the moribund hellscape. All I have to do is swoop in and collect the fruits of their labor. I would feel worse if I wasn't just another link in a twisted chain. Continuing eastward, a peculiar sight on the horizon caught my eye. I exercised caution as I got closer, making sure that whatever this place wasn't filled with bloodthirsty monsters fiending for flesh. It's the General Atomics Galleria, a village where robots handle everything and serve their human patrons. A showcase of the future we wish we had, lodged within the ruinous future we deserved. They have been waiting for their new human supervisor to show up since before the war. I went along with it. The place is closed to the public, so pretending to be their new master was the only way to get inside. These robots have done a great job keeping the riffraff out and maintaining their area. It's safe here, at least as long as one doesn't upset the robots. They have a bakery where they call ticket numbers into the void, waiting for someone to claim their years-old pastries. They have a Fallon's department store headed by a Mr. Handy who threatens anyone messing with their perfectly curated showroom, despite the end of the world doing enough of that for everybody. They have a diner whose waitertrons tend to skeletons and echoes of the past. They have a boxing gym where the aptly named champ patiently waits for a worthy fighter to challenge him. These robots could go on forever, never knowing that humans blew themselves up. I doubt it would change anything for them, even if they did find out. The wasteland is a rich tapestry of constant, horrible chaos, but this was a pleasant break from it all. Moving on, I crept eastward through the snow and ash-covered wilderness until I happened upon a cemetery whose grave sprawled far and wide. For all I know, they never stop. Everything is a cemetery now. It was quiet, peaceful, a sacred space that offered little else but silence. The withering yawn of the post-apocalypse suddenly muffled. I took my time combing the tombs for anything useful, until one room in particular had an odd sight, a disturbed resting place with a skull adorned by two hands set like wings behind it. As I investigated, a raider sprung their trap and attacked, nearly taking me out. My last few rounds burrowed into soft flesh, adding another body to the graveyard. I explored the nearby toppled building for more supplies. I noticed a small town in the distance, with a neighborhood nearby, Malden and its accompanying West Everett estates. I crossed a river to reach the houses, and heard the shriek of a crying baby. Something was not right here, or rather, nothing is right. The shells and framework of the homes do little to hide the horrors in and around them. Human remains strewn about in gruesome fashion. Name a body part, and I'm sure I could find it among some twisted sculpture. I do not know what ungodly things put these together. Inside one of the houses, a feral ghoul watched over a baby's carriage. At least that points to where the baby's crying was coming from. Walking closer, a red glow covered the room, and the ghoul turned towards me and charged. I put them down. A pentagram lies on the floor. Inside the carriage was no child, just assorted human remains, surrounded by eyeball upholstery. I think it's safe to say I liked it better when I was fighting against other survivors. But I'm beginning to fear that my greatest enemy is no longer the violent desperation of my fellow man, but instead some otherworldly occult force that desires to spread itself like a plague, corrupting everything it touches. Perhaps the two will form some unholy alliance against me. What chance do I have then? Right on cue, next door in the town of Malden, I found it crawling with savage people dressed in cultist garbs. The Malden men. If I had to bet, I would put my money on them as the culprits for the horrors I witnessed. and I'm in no hurry to let them turn me into some wicked art installation to appease whatever fucked up god or demon they worship. They seem to be using the hospital as their base of operations. What the fuck is going on inside that hospital? I'm in no shape to fight my way through the hordes of the unwashed, murderous cultists to find out. They're armed with sacrificial blades and serrated machetes. They prefer their killing to be personal. I can use that to my advantage, but I'll need to regroup and whip up one hell of a war effort to stand any chance against them. Sure, I'm still the one bringing a gun to a knife fight, but the numbers game is not in my favor. My pipe dream of establishing a haven among the rubble is in jeopardy with these people in the picture. This discovery has given me much to think about, and much to run from. Retracing my steps, I retreat towards Sanctuary Hills, while taking some calculated detours to squeeze as much from this trip as I can. I found a downed airliner. It failed to outrun the apocalypse. Its contents were ejected onto the ground. Dozens of skeletons littered its shredded hull. The rows and rows of destroyed seats were overflowing with suitcases and other personal effects of the fallen passengers. Would it kill these people again to have some ammunition on them? Now I'm starting to see why the Malden men are so fond of pointy sticks and stabby knives. Guns are just too hungry. For my own good, I should start practicing my baseball swing. Following my trail back to Sanctuary, I braved the protective moat and greeted my humble shack once again. My mission to scavenge the countryside for valuable resources and materials was not as fruitful as I would have liked. I came across countless forgotten pieces of the old world: a robot scrapyard, a crashed vertibird, a satellite facility, a marketing gimmick gone too far, and most alarming, a town swarming with brutal cultists, fiending for who knows what. The goal was always survival, scratching and clawing, gnashing and fighting against the dying of the light. But it's up to me to build upon that foundation of survival with purpose, to stare into the buzzing chaos of existence and draw from it some meaning behind it all. Life is the story you make of it. I am the protagonist. Sanctuary and the dreams of my wasteland empire growing from it are my purpose. However, the outside is trying to tear it all down. I have to uncover the mysteries of this frostbitten nightmare if I wish to overcome it. It starts with Malden and the secrets it hides. Perhaps it'll unfold into a larger plot, a spiraling rabbit hole from which I may not escape. That remains to be seen. As far as I can tell, I have no choice but to descend into madness if I wish to ascend into salvation. I guess that's the next step.